Hey guys, it's Quana back again with another review. I apologize for the delay, but I am here to talk all about Lovecraft Country episode 7. And I'm going to tell you what, it took me a little bit longer to even be able to do this because I had to watch this episode like 3 times because so much happened. It was so good. Definitely one of the best episodes we have gotten from this show thus far. And of course, what made this episode so special is that it highlighted Aunt Hippolyta, the one and only Ingenue Ellis. So I really want to unpack this episode. I really want to tell you some of the things that I saw in it and tell you some of my predictions for the video. But before we get started, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button down below, please. Girl is trying to make her way slowly up to 100, and only you can help. So, do me a favor, hit the subscribe, hit the like button. I promise you this is going to be a great video and I'm not going to waste any of your time today. So let's get into this episode. So we're going to start with Ruby and Christina. Ruby is with Christina in her house, or it's William's house. We still don't know. And they're in the basement, and there are 2 dead bodies in the basement. And so we see the comatose or deceased bodies of William and Dell. Now, I'm going to tell you what, I was today years old when I realized that Dell or Hillary, well, I think she was Hillary when she was the white lady in the department store with Ruby, but then she's Dell when she was the woman at the lodge who blew the whistle to control the little demon dogs. I was today years old when I realized that it was the same person. My brain had not even made the connection until finally I slowed down and watched the credits. So this is one of them shows you gotta watch the credits because sometimes you'll miss people's names. You be like, what? Anyway, that's who that is. And so we find out that like Christina is just basically barely keeping them alive so that she can use their blood to create the potion that allows them to transform into them. So anyway, what we get from Christina's explanation, and I'm gonna call it an explanation because I still don't know if we can trust Christina or what, and I'm like not trying to trust Christina. But anyway, she says that she manipulated William into teaching her about magic so that she could convince her daddy to accept her. Okay, daddy issues, but Captain Lancaster killed him. Okay, I did not go into Ruby's episode as deeply as I should. But again, I'm going to point out Captain Lancaster was the dude who, at least when I saw him, has like some Frankenstein looking body where like his torso is a black man's torso. So I'm hoping we find out like what the deal is going on with him. Anyway, she perfected this potion that allows her to take over their bodies. And at some point in time, Captain Lancaster offed William. And so she's basically been keeping him on life support so she can experience being a man. She's definitely like going through some like ultimate like white woman feminist kind of deal where she wants to have like male power and she doesn't care who she has to step on. And so, I know at times she has been helpful. She has helped protect Tick and them at times, but I'm definitely like in the camp that believes she's only doing that so she can continue to use them, not because she really cares. So I'm side eyeing her big time, okay? And Ruby kind of low key called her out on it and was like, "You only use me, and on top of that, you turn into a man just so you could get with me." Poor Ruby. And of course, Ruby sits there and listens to her. And so now she's going to get tangled up in all her drama. And when will Ruby just learn just to stay out of it? Just, you had the right idea when you said, these folks are into some crazy stuff and let me just get out of Dodge. But y'all know there's always got to be that one. So on to Leti and Tick. Leti has a dream of Tick's great great grandmama Hannah. We don't know how many great she is, running through the burning lodge with a book. And then when Hannah turns around, it's that same sequence basically that Tick experienced when he was literally on fire in the lodge. Anyway, Letty has that same sequence and she catches fire and we see that she is pregnant. And I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I was like, Lord, as soon as they had the you know what, I was like, she gonna get pregnant and it's gonna be a little either a little demon baby or I'm gonna tell you all my thoughts about that. But I'm gonna just say I knew it. I knew it all along. I was totally right. Anyway, she gets up, and so then we see her smooching Tick, which I love because I ship them so hard. And she tells him about the dream. So they realize that Hannah escaped with the book of names, and that they realize that they may have access to the whole spell book, which means that Tick is going to become like a grand wizard. Well, I'm gonna tell you what I think is going to happen with that later. But anyway, they handed over to Montrose's to see if they could find out more about Tick's mama's family. And when they get to Montrose's, that's where we find out Montrose and Sammy are together. All right, so y'all remember from 2 episodes ago, Montrose and Sammy finally had like their little, you know, reunited and it feels so good moment. Well, now they have just had the most awkward morning after ever. And Sammy is sitting there cooking Montrose some breakfast, and Montrose is unappreciative behind is like, "You made me put some pork. I don't eat pork. Why my grits running? I don't like runny grits." And it reminded me of Karen White's song "Superwoman." You know, she's like, "Early in the morning, I put breakfast on your table. Make sure that your coffee has its sugar and cream." Well, I believe that it's definitely a nod to that. Somebody was listening because if Sammy don't turn around and say, "You probably gonna complain about the coffee," and he says, "Yes, it's too sweet." And so that was not only to me a nod to that song, but it was also like code for somebody's gonna find out because you over here being super gay and I'm trying to be on the DL and I'm not trying to get found out. It's basically how I interpreted that. Sammy has had enough and he runs out of the apartment and runs smack dab into Tick and Leti. And it's like, uh-oh, cat's out of the bag. Tick is super, super pissed. And he goes off on Montrose. So this scene made me like low key a little uncomfortable because, you know, Tick has his little homophobic moment where he wants to call, you know, Montrose the F word. But I get it because, you know, one, Tick is a flawed hero. We definitely see that, you know, i.e., the whole, you know, Korean, you know, thing, Korean War thing. But he isn't completely homophobic. He's mostly just like really ticked off that for all these years, Montrose has been beating the ever living last gospel out of him for being super soft. And it's like, yo, you were beating me for being super soft when really you were trying to beat it out of yourself, or you were mad because you couldn't beat it out of yourself. So you're going to take it out on me. And he broke down crying, and it was so touching and so sad. Jonathan Majors acted the behind out of that scene, and he had me at a tear. And then Letty went to go hold him and comfort him, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I want them to be together. Tick, don't die. Tick, don't go back with Jiha." But you know, I have my thoughts. But anyway, luckily, Letty behind didn't run after him too fast, and she does talk to Montrose, and she gets to find out some information that there that Tick's mom, excuse me, mama's cousin has a friend. That's some black people stuff, y'all. Tick's mama's cousin has a friend who lives in St. Louis, so they need to try to go find her because maybe she knows where the book of names is. So they decide to go hit up Auntie Hippolyta to see if they can borrow Woody in order to get to the book of names. But Auntie Hippolyta ain't having it. She's pissed. Y'all still ain't told me what happened to my baby daddy. I'm pissed. Y'all trying to play me, and I'm not having it. And I got stuff to do, and you're not gonna stop me from doing what I got to do. So they're gonna have to get on the bus. Well, Letty decides to stay and help Ruby babysit Diana so that they can like mend their little bridge or whatever. And so Tick hops his tail on the Greyhound and goes to St. Louis, which reminded me last week that the episode last week was Meet Me in Daegu, which was a play on Meet Me in St. Louis, the movie with Judy Garland, which of course Jiha was like watching at the beginning of the episode, right? But then throughout the episode, I kept seeing all of these connections to St. Louis. Y'all, I know I cannot be tripping. I feel like they are planning all this stuff, and my brain was just going everywhere. So I might be really reaching, okay? But later on in the episode, they bring in Josephine Baker. And where was Josephine Baker born? St. Louis. And then um, I made me think about Men in Black when they mentioned the World's Fair, the first World's Fair, which was where? In St. Louis. And the purpose of the World's Fair was to introduce new technologies and future technologies and put them on display. And what was this episode all about? Technology, space travel, time travel, world dimensions, all of that. And what was Men in Black about? Aliens. And what do we get in this episode? Aliens. So I think this episode was connected to St. Louis all up and down. And I feel like we're going to get even more connections to St. Louis later on. So I digress. Anyway, he meets his cousin's friend and he gets to see a picture of his cousin, which is just, she's just some older black lady. I didn't recognize her. If you recognized her, let me know down below. But she had a scar on her arm, and then he looks and he sees he has a similar scar on his back. And the scar he has on his back, it kind of looked like one of the ones in the picture, but I feel like he would have said that if it was one of the ones in the picture. But I feel like that's definitely going to be a connection to the dawn of the order of the ancient dawn people. You know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, he gets a call from Leti while she's hanging out, and Leti has found the orrery, which Hippolyta figured out how to open, and so she gives him the coordinates so that he can race off to find Hippolyta. In the process, she's all nauseous, and so she is definitely pregnated with a little baby tip. And so I'm just saying, they're Adam and Eve because she was a virgin and he impregnated her, and they are Adam and Eve. So the order of the dawn is they are the dawn that's coming. The baby is the dawn that's coming. The baby is the dawn that's coming, and it makes me wonder if it's going to be like Dawn, like for my Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans, like Buffy and Dawn, like how Dawn came and Dawn was the key. Maybe the baby is the key. I'm just saying. I digress. So finally, we get to the most important story of the episode, which is Hippolyta. Hippolyta has had enough. She is frustrated because no one will tell her what happened to her baby daddy, and she has had enough. And that really could have been the name of this episode, like Hippolyta has had enough. Um, After she hops into the car to chase down the coordinates from the orrery, which, okay, if you look them up, they actually go to a town called Troy, Kansas, which made me think of the Trojan soldiers and the Trojan War. And the Hippolyta's name comes from word that means horse. And so I was like, oh, okay, there's a connection there. But then when they actually get there, it says Mayfield. When you look up where Mayfield is like an additional 3 hours away from Troy. So I was a little confused by that, and I kept trying to like figure out what the coordinates meant. But some of them don't mean anything, or at least they don't mean anything that we have figured out as of yet. If you know what the coordinates mean, let me know. Like I said, when I typed in to Google Maps, it popped up Troy, Kansas. So anyway, she's on her little drive on the road again, and she's listening to "C'est Toi" by Josephine Baker, and it's a beautiful song. If you've ever like listened to Josephine Baker sing in French, it's so beautiful. But when you translate it, it means it is you. Okay, I want you. It is you, and the name of the episode is "I Am." So I was like, oh, okay, they're trying to make a connection there. And then she drives past this woman on this motorcycle, and she's all smiling, and the woman is free, and so she's smiling because she's free. And it's actually supposed to be Bessie Stringfield, who is like the famous black female motorcyclist who was the first to like traverse the continental U.S. This show is so good about finding details about black history that they can embed into it, and they can make line up with the timeline. It is so good. I really need to go back and watch earlier episodes to see, because I'm sure there are even more than the ones that we have already picked out, like Emmett Till as Bobo and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, she opens the glove box, and this is really sweet because she finds a new comic of Orinthia Blue, which was nice because she didn't think that Dee made her one, because Dee had a little attitude when she left, because that was like her whole little thing that she had with her dad, and her dad is gone, and now her mom is leaving, and she's mad, but she still put a comic in the little glove box for her mom, and I was like, that's really really sweet. Now, for those of y'all who have read the book, I just kind of started reading the book, so there is a whole backstory that the show doesn't even really tell you about, like the character's name and where it comes from. But we might get that in the next episode. So I'm just gonna, I don't want to say anything yet, but you might get it in the next episode. So that was really nice. So then anyway, she gets to the observatory and there's like a time machine inside. So I was like, oh, okay, H.G. Wells. And I told y'all there was some H.G. Wells. There's some H.G. Wells connections because even in the very first episode, it's Lovecraft stuff, but it's also H.G. Wells stuff. So they had a little time machine in there. And she tries to get it to work before she is like rudely interrupted by two of Lancaster's cops. So I was like, how rude, just when she tried to figure out what was going on. Because I really wanted it to like, for her to know that it was the time machine working. Because I feel like what happens, it's not the time machine really working. I don't know. I don't know. It could be. It could be. Anyway, Atticus, they run in and get her. They're like about to like arrest her, harass her, lynch her, whatever. Atticus runs in just in time and he pulls out his gun. And for some reason, he can't hang on to his gun, y'all. The gun falls. They go to grab the gun, and then a stray bullet hits the machine and it rips a portal open across space. And you see like the desert and space and all these different times a rip open in this time portal. Hippolyta grabs the gun and shoots one of the cops, but then the other one falls into the portal. And then Hippolyta falls into the portal, and then Atticus falls into the portal. And I knew I wasn't tripping because I kept saying Atticus fell into the portal. My husband didn't think Atticus fell into the portal, but then when I watched it again, I was like, Atticus definitely fell into that portal. So I'm really confused because we don't know what happened to the cop. And we don't know what happened to Atticus, but somehow his behind landed back into the same spot when all was said and done. So where was he and what did he see? And are we ever going to get a chance to see what he saw? This episode could have been like 5 or 10 minutes longer just so we could have seen what happened with Atticus. I mean, I'm just saying. Anyhow, she zips through space and then she falls like a comet or a meteor into another Earth. And she awakens on board this ship. And there's this robotic alien looking woman. And so, unless you watch the credits, you just think she is like, you could probably guess that she is either like an alien or like a deity or an Orisha or something. But in the credits, they tell you her name is Seraphina. And you know, Seraphina, it comes from like the word seraphim, which means like an angel. And if you think about an angel as being like a godly, heavenly body, then she definitely is that. But it also says, AKA Beyond Say. They think we slow, okay? Because you would not know that that was her name, Beyonce, and it's the French say like c'est la vie, but okay, if you say it fast enough, right? We all know what you're hearing, which is crazy, especially when you think about Black is King and all of the imagery that Beyonce had in Black is King. It really makes you wonder, like, even if they had that character figured out as Seraphina, did they somehow come back later and throw in like the Beyonce tie, or was it always there to begin with? That's really what I want somebody to tell me because I was like, oh, that's slick. But if you think about the word say, it just means it is. So beyond it is, I guess, is what you could basically say. Anyhow, Hippolyta is naked. I was like, girl, you look good. Okay, you better go ahead and like, show that vulnerability, like the idea that like she kind of would be like they would have examined her body and she wakes up and she's vulnerable and it shows like her vulnerability. But she puts on her little space jumpsuit and she tries to start taking apart the ship and falling apart. And the Beyonce character keeps telling her, this is not a prison. This is not a prison. And I really keep trying to focus in on like you are not in a prison. Like the mindset she's trying to possess her with, like you are not in a prison. You can do whatever you want to do. You can do whatever you put your mind to. So ultimately she tells her you have to name yourself. You have to give yourself a name. Where do you want to be in the world? And so she finally kind of gets it and she's like, I want to be on stage with Josephine Baker dancing. of all the places in the world, on stage with Josephine Baker dancing. Okay. And that is surely where she appears. Now, if you didn't know about Josephine Baker before you watched this, you did not know that Josephine Baker was a famous screen actress, singer, and dancer, but she's known for having danced um, topless in Paris. And so they're on stage, they're dancing. Hippolyta didn't know what she's doing. She is in awe. And then she must have forgot because all of a sudden all the women drop their tops and she's sitting there looking around like, oh, is that what we're supposed to do? And she does not drop hers. Now, I noticed even though she is nude on the bed inside the spaceship, she is never nude while they're dancing on stage. So we go through this montage, and again, they keep using the coordinates at the bottom of the screen to show that she's like drifting through time and space. I kept looking at the coordinates. None of the coordinates go to anything on Earth. But I'm sure that the way that these writers are on the show, the coordinates do mean something. Like the sequence of the numbers that they chose do mean something. I just wish I knew what it was, but I couldn't figure it out. I tried my best, y'all. I genuinely did. I was looking at my, I was like, is this Paris? And I was like, no, this is not Paris. Um, she builds a relationship with Josephine Baker, and they have this wonderful conversation about how Josephine Baker feels like a star. And so she's at first like, yeah, you are a star. She's like, no, like a star, like an actual real star. A real star is dead. You're with the light that you're seeing from it is expired. And so she says, I feel ancient. I feel beyond time. I feel larger than all of this. And Hippolyta really understands that. And she's just like, I never felt like that until here. I never knew how to voice that. And I feel so much bigger than the world will let me be. It really put me in the mindset of when Ruby um told William when she that she loved being a woman and she loved being a black when the world did not get in the way. And it's we're continuing with this whole line of thinking of the fact that you can be bigger. You don't have to let the world define you. And when we get bogged down with the things of the world, we limit ourselves, but we really can be bigger and better than who the world says that we are. So I thought that that was really on point for real. While she's with Josephine Baker, Frida Kahlo is there, the famous artist with the unibrow that y'all know. Selma Hayek played her in a movie, and she said this really great toast, and she said, um, "I want like she was toasting to the women who knew when to create and when to destroy." And I thought that resonated so well with the storyline because she goes through these phases of creating and destroying. But this episode was really about her getting all of that destructive energy out of her, all that anger out of her because she could not create anything. She could not discover who she was with all of that anger bottled up. I feel like I'm preaching a word right now. Ultimately, she says that she hates white people for making her feel small, and then she says she hates, and she doesn't say it, but it's very clear that she's saying she hates George because he also limited herself as well. So then the next thing you know, she shouts out that she's Hippolyta, and she ends up being sent to the Dahomey Amazons, which they're in the area of like Benin, and it's the all women tribe that like the Dora Milaje were based off of them, and they were reminiscent that's what the Europeans call them anyway, but I think they're really called like the Minnow people. And the last one was this warrior named Nawai, and apparently she lived like 100 years. And so we see Hippolyta is studying under her and training under her, and she becomes a big time warrior with them, and they end up fighting this massive battle. Now, that battle sequence, I'm gonna tell you, I could not clearly figure out because, to my knowledge, in real life, they mostly fought against the French, but in the show, it looked more like they were fighting against Confederate soldiers. And I didn't know if that was the lines of reality blending in with what was going on because it was more like fighting against Jim Crow, against the racism that she had encountered. Um, But they have this huge epic battle. They destroy them, but it's not over, and you know it's not over. And you see her; she leaves right before they clash again, and she ends up saying, "I am Hippolyta, white George's wife." And so she ends up being back from when we first saw them in the very beginning, the first episode, in bed together, kind of echoing the same words. When she gets up, she tells him everything that she has experienced. And this is what was crazy. He literally just believed her. I mean, which was really nice to see, like, him completely just believe his wife and believe her and take her as her word. But it also makes you wonder, like, is he real? Is he believing her because he's not real? Because he certainly was very dismissive of her in real life. So that was very, very strange. And I kept thinking, like, even like, was this all happening in her head? Um, Ultimately, she confides to him that she experienced all this, and how she was made to feel small, how she shrunk herself, and she basically admits that he did it to her too. He said, "I thought you knew how big I wanted to be," and he says, he did marry her because of her curiosity, but I guess he kind of let those things go because he wanted a wife and he wanted a family, and he was willing to let her give up who all the dreams that she had in order to give those things to him. Ultimately, um, he he starts to ask her, like, well, who do you want to be? And so she says, I am a discoverer. And so she names herself a discoverer. And she transforms into Orithia Blue. And I was like, that is such a sweet nod to her daughter. She becomes the vision that her daughter had of her, because her daughter was able to see her for how big she could be. And it was so beautiful. So they're traveling through space, and they see these little, funky little space aliens that are like very cartoonish. It literally looks like they fall into the comic book. And they're on Mars, and she's zipping around. And even her little spaceship is a little Woody spaceship. I don't know if you guys saw that. It's so cute. It's so cute. And so she's on Mars, and she's discovering life. She's creating life. There's a voiceover from Sun Ra, and he says in the voiceover that Black people are myths. Like, he talks about being not being real, and that Black people are myths. And what I gleaned from that was just the idea that they're the creators, like the creators of the universe. And so in that way, they are mythological. They are here in the present, but they are also in the past, and they are mythological beings. Um, she ultimately goes back to Serafina. And Serafina says, now that you've explored all this, now that you've become who you're supposed to be, we can fully integrate you. And but she asked to be sent back because she says that her daughter needs her, but she's wondering how she's going to fit all that she's experienced of the world into her small form again. Like, it's a different kind of shrinking, but in this case, she's like fully aware. So she's making the choice to shrink herself. But we do see her get sent back, but we don't see her get sent back to the observatory. So we have to assume that she gets sent to back to Chicago. But I don't know. We might find out in the next episode she gets sent back and changes form or something. We don't know. She could get sent back as Tick and Letty's baby, y'all. She could get sent back as Tick and Letty's baby. So anyhow, when she gets sent back, well, we don't see her. Instead, we see Tick falling through the portal, which is why I was like, oh, he did fall through the portal. And in his hand, he has a Lovecraft Country paperback, and the author's name on it is George Freeman. Well, he has to run because the cops are on their way, and there's her Orinthia Blue comic that Diana made her lying in the cops' blood. So now they're gonna go find Diana and figure out what was going on. But this was an amazing episode, y'all. I know that that recap just took so long. This was so much going on in this episode. It was just astounding. It was amazing. And the message about not shrinking yourself, becoming who you want to be, naming yourself, it was just it you could see the seeds of it throughout the show, but it really kind of came to fruition in this episode. Predictions. I'll predict that Atticus is not going to be the person who is able to use that book of names. I'm predicting that it's going to be Leti. I don't think you put Journey Smollett in a show and you be as amazing as she has been as Letitia Lewis, and you put her on the back seat or behind Jonathan Majors, who is an amazing actor. Don't get me wrong. I fully think because she is with child, we're gonna find out that somehow the scar is going to be something that's going to disable them from having the magic, and she's going to be able to pull in the magic of the baby and have pure magic and be able to use the magic. That is fully what I believe is going to happen. I could be 100% wrong about all of that. It could be that Hippolyta comes back as their baby. I don't know. I don't know. I definitely think there, hopefully, we get full reconciliation. It's just everybody, Tick and Montrose, Ruby and Leti, everybody needs to reconcile. Everybody needs to be on one accord. We are family. They need to get it together. I'm really worried about Jihad's vision of Tick dying, which is all the more reason why I do think that maybe we're going to find out that Leti will be the one who gets to use the power. We only have like 3 episodes left, y'all. 2 episodes left. 8, 9, 10, 3 episodes left. And I am really nervous. I hope that there is so much more that they can do in this world so that we can get another season of this show, y'all. But that is all I have for y'all tonight. Let me know down below in the comments what I missed, what Easter eggs I missed, what y'all think is happening, what you think is going to happen, and what you thought about this episode. And do not forget to hit the subscribe button down below so that I can keep making more content for you guys. And until next time, toodles!